Hollywood. We all know it as the Dream Factory, right? For more than 100 years, it's been selling us these incredible images of glamour, of romance, of making it big. It's where stars are born. But, behind that shiny silver screen, there's a completely different story. And it's not just a story about a few bad people. It's about a system, a structure that was built with some pretty serious design flaws from the very beginning. So, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual blueprint. This quote right here, it really just hits the nail on the head. It frames the whole problem perfectly. See, we're not talking about isolated scandals or a couple of bad apples. We're talking about an architecture, a system that was built on purpose and has been carefully maintained for decades.
So, that leads us right to the big question for this whole explainer. Is the dark side of Hollywood just a bunch of unfortunate mistakes, or is it actually part of the original design? To figure that out, we've got to look at the foundational pillars holding the entire industry up.
Okay, so the very first pillar of this whole flawed building is all about one thing: control. And this wasn't some tool designed to make better movies. No, this was about managing risk and protecting the bottom line. And, as you're about to see, it was born out of one of the biggest, most explosive scandals in early Hollywood history.
Picture this, it's 1921 and Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle is literally on top of the world. He's the highest paid actor in all of Hollywood. But then, a party he hosts ends in tragedy and he finds himself charged with manslaughter. Now, even though he was eventually found not guilty, the jury even apologized to him, the scandal was a total PR nightmare. The studio heads were absolutely terrified. They suddenly realized their stars' private lives were a huge financial risk that they had to get under control and fast.
So what was their solution? Well, it was both really simple and incredibly powerful. A studio called Universal was the first to roll out what they called the morality clause. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a friendly suggestion to behave yourself. This was a legal weapon. It gave studios the absolute one-sided power to fire an actor for any behavior they considered offensive. It basically gave them total control over their performers' lives, both on and off the screen.
And what's so fascinating is how this one little clause became this incredibly flexible tool. Back in the 20s, it was all about policing sex scandals. Then, fast forward to the 1950s, during the whole McCarthy era, it was turned into a weapon to blacklist anyone with supposed communist sympathies. And today? Oh yeah, it's been updated for the social media age to quickly cancel talent and contain any viral drama. The key thing here is that the tool is the same, it's just the target that changes with the times.
That legal control, though, that's just one part of the architecture. The second pillar is more informal, but it's this deeply rooted culture of abuse that really targets the most vulnerable people in the whole industry.
And honestly, there's no more tragic or famous example than Judy Garland. Starting when she was just 10 years old, a kid, the studio system was feeding her stimulants, they called them pep pills, to keep her working for insane stretches, sometimes 72 hours straight. And then they'd give her sleeping pills to knock her out. This wasn't just a mistake or bad oversight, it was a deliberate system that treated a child like a piece of machinery, and it led to an addiction that haunted her for her entire life.
The abuse wasn't just physical, it was financial too. When child star Jackie Coogan finally turned 21, he found out that his parents had spent his entire fortune. We're talking about $4 million, which is a staggering amount of money back then. His story was so shocking that it led to the Coogan Law, which for the very first time said that a piece of a child actor's pay, 15%, had to be put away in a trust.
It was definitely a step in the right direction, but the system, well, it's always evolving. Today, the exploitation of kids in entertainment hasn't gone away. It has just moved to a new, pretty much unregulated playground: social media.
And this comparison really shows you the heart of the problem today. A child actor on a movie set has at least some legal protections, right? Their hours are limited, they have to get an education, and that Coogan Law protects a slice of their money. But child influencers? They're living in this total legal gray zone. Their parents can control all the money, their whole life can become content 24/7, and there's basically zero federal oversight. The very laws that were created to stop the abuses of the past, they just don't apply here.
Okay, pillar number 3. This part of the architecture is all about who gets to even be in the Dream Factory. From the very start, Hollywood was basically engineered to push out and sideline non-white voices and stories.
And this wasn't some kind of unspoken bias, it was literally written into the rulebook. The Hays Code, which was the law of the land in filmmaking for over 30 years, straight up banned showing miscegenation, which is an old term for interracial relationships. It was a formal written policy of racial exclusion that dictated what stories could be told and who was allowed to fall in love on screen. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that was then, things are totally different now.
But let's look at the data on who actually holds the power in Hollywood today. The executives who greenlight the movies, the TV bosses, the top agents who represent all the talent, they are still overwhelmingly white. This creates this systemic barrier, this leadership deficit that just keeps that old cycle of exclusion going.
And if you think this is just a social issue, well, think again. What does this number, $10 billion, represent?
Yep, $10 billion. According to a major study by McKinsey, that's how much money the industry loses every single year because of systemic anti-Black bias. So this is the really crucial point. This isn't just about doing the right thing. The architecture of exclusion is literally costing Hollywood a fortune.
And that brings us to our final pillar, which is all about money and work. The rise of the giant streaming services has created this whole new digital battlefield. And it's just the latest chapter in the industry's long history of devaluing the people who actually create the content.
The huge Hollywood strikes in 2023 were a direct result of this massive shift. The streaming model basically blew up the old system. Residuals, those checks creators got when a show went into reruns, they've been replaced by these microscopic payments for shows that are massive global hits. Then you have artificial intelligence threatening to replace actual human writers and actors. And the whole business is becoming a gig economy, with shorter seasons and way less stability, making it tougher than ever to actually build a career.
And what's more, writers and actors aren't just fighting the old studios anymore. They're up against massive tech giants. This quote here, from an analysis of Amazon's strategy, it kind of reveals the endgame. Companies like Amazon, they aren't just making shows, they're building a global infrastructure to control the entire creative pipeline, from top to bottom.
So, when we put all of these pieces together, a really clear picture starts to form. The dark side of Hollywood, this long history of exploitation, it's not an accident. It's a core feature of the business model. It's a feature, not a bug.
So let's just recap the 4 pillars we looked at. First, we saw a system of control, using things like morality clauses to manage talent like a financial asset. Then, a culture of abuse that preys on the most vulnerable. Then, a foundation of exclusion that keeps a racial hierarchy in place. And finally, the constant devaluation of creative work to make more profit. These are not separate problems. They are all the interlocking gears of one single machine.
And that really is the main takeaway here. The exploitation isn't a bug in the system, it is the system. It's a set of deliberate architectural features that have allowed the industry to build and hold on to its power for more than a century.
Which leaves all of us with one last big thought. We're the audience, right? We buy the product, the glamour, the dreams, the amazing stories. But if the exploitation we've just talked about is the machinery that makes it all possible, what's the true cost of the entertainment we're watching?